Hi, so this video is going to be about INFPs and our decision-making process. And a couple weeks ago, somebody left a comment on my channel saying that she has an INFP boss, and sometimes it's frustrating to, I guess, kind of try to get this person to make a decision and maybe to make a video about maybe why that is and how to get an INFP to actually take action. So that's part of what this video is going to be about, and also just overall kind of going through our process and what's going on inside our head when we're trying to make a decision, big or small. And also I have these headphones in because I know that some people have been talking about how quiet I am, and I'm trying to figure out a microphone situation, so hopefully this helps a little bit. So bear with me because I'm not very technologically proficient with videos, which is pretty obvious. So anyway, so an INFP's default mode most of the time is that, you know, we're obviously constantly checking with ourselves to make sure that our choices align with our morals and our values, and also importantly, if our intuition is telling us to do these things. That's very, very important to us. And we're almost always unsure if we're doing the right thing. So that's another issue that we encounter a lot, is that we have this constant fear of doing the wrong thing. And we really need a lot of time to feel good about the choices that we make, just to really think things over and make sure that we 100% feel that we're doing the right thing, which is not ideal for the modern world, and it's certainly not ideal for somebody in a leadership position at a workplace, especially. That can make things really challenging for them and for their co-workers. And I think that sometimes FI DOMs in general are perceived as people who are just and righteous, and people look to FI dominant types for advice, which is strange to us because we always feel like we don't know what we're doing and we don't know if we're doing the right thing, and then people will approach us for advice about situations that we're not familiar with or topics that we know hardly anything about. They'll ask us what our opinion is, and it's kind of weird for us. And I think that it's similar to imposter syndrome, I think, in a way, when people are, you know, really proficient at their job, and you know, they still have this underlying feeling that they're not good enough, and they're just, you know, it's a false thing. And I think a good example of somebody being kind of this fixture of what is moral and just, and then people always look to them for a solution or what is the right thing, is in Game of Thrones, Jon Snow. I think he's a really good example of somebody that people look to as, this man will do the right thing, and he knows what is right, and he doesn't feel like he does all the time. And I think that's a really good example of what FI DOMs are kind of dealing with all the time, obviously with smaller stakes. But and the problem with INFPs is that we tend to get stuck and not do anything because we're afraid of making the wrong choice. And at least for me, I get stuck in repetitive thought loops about what could go wrong if I choose the wrong thing between two choices. And then it can rapidly turn into thoughts about, oh, I'm a bad person if I make the wrong choice, which could be, that could be an anxiety thing and not necessarily an INFP thing, but I think that there's a fair amount of INFPs who struggle with that, so that's something to keep in mind too. But really, to kind of spur an INFP into action, you have to get them to understand that doing nothing is worse than doing, you know, the less good option. You have to get them to understand that doing nothing is worse. And this often means that you have to get them to understand that their inaction is negatively impacting other people, because that's one of the things that we deeply fear, and that's one of the things that kind of holds us back from making decisions sometimes, is how is this going to impact other people. And so when we reach a point where somebody just kind of straight up tells us that, hey, you need to do something because XYZ, and it's affecting your coworkers if this is a work situation, because then that'll get us to do something one way or another. And this, I think, is a big factor in why INFPs are really reluctant to take on leadership roles. We're not really naturally suited for that in the corporate world most of the time. And when we do end up in these positions, we struggle because we also have this problem with making a definitive statement, especially when it comes to other people. That's really difficult for us. And when we realize that what we're doing is inconveniencing other people, this can become a really strong motivating factor for us to actually make a decision and do something. And I think that a really good example of a conversation between an ENTP and an ISFP is, again, from Game of Thrones, which, if you've seen the whole show, it's the conversation that Tyrion has with Jon Snow in the last episode, which is also a conversation for the benefit of the audience, but that's another story, where Tyrion lays out to Jon Snow what he has to do. And, spoiler alert, if you've not seen the show and you plan on watching it, but the thing that pushes Jon Snow over the edge is when Tyrion says to him to think about his sisters, and what's going to happen to them if he doesn't do what needs to be done. Now, again, obviously this is a lot higher stakes and this is a fantasy scenario, but I think that's a good representation of what FI DOMs, both INFPs and ISFPs to a certain extent, what we're dealing with, and how to motivate us to do something. So essentially, we're constantly struggling with, am I doing the right thing? Am I doing the wrong thing? Should I be doing something else? And this can become a really big problem if we're in a leadership position at work and we don't learn how to kind of manage this and just take action. That's really hard for us. So in any case, I'm not really sure if that's helpful to the person that left that comment, but I appreciate the comment because hopefully it made for an interesting video, and I thought it was something interesting to think about. So if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please let me know. Thank you for watching, and I hope you're having a good day. Bye.